And submission means she's the voice of God to you.
None of Joni's kids or their spouses agreed with Joni's marriage to Weiss.
All the allegations that are circulating against myself and my late husband are completely false.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Wake Up and Win podcast. We're your hosts, Blaise.
And Christina.
And we're here with the nighttime vibes. Again, it's a late night episode here. We had a article drop tonight on the Daystar stuff, and so we were going to just go ahead and knock that out for you guys, read through that. Kind of expecting a third one from the rumor mill a little bit.
Well, she said in this article, she was like more.
That's what I mean by the rumor mill. The rumor mill.
The report says that there will be.
Yeah.
Yes, Julie Royce is very busy.
Yeah.
She's very busy. This is the third article on Daystar she's written. Has it only been a week?
It's been a week, yeah.
And then she has another one coming. Who knows how many more she has coming, but this is just like a huge story. But she's doing a good job because it is massive.
Yeah.
So to put it all into like one would have been impossible.
And as we'll get into here, I mean, she's doing a great job on how she's laying it out. In my opinion, she's doing a good job on how she's laying it out step by step, because you're getting more of the deeper details of the story. And a lot of people want to comment on it and, you know, blame this person, that person, or the other person. And as you let the details roll themselves out, it's really helpful just to get the full picture. So clearly we're commenting on every single story. We're literally reading and just going, okay, this looks interesting here. And we're trying to parcel out all the info. But this one right here really tied a lot together. So if you're new with us, we've been covering, you know, kind of these church scandals for the last year and really trying to help people through their deconstruction when they see their church leaders fall and there's kind of systems fall apart. And really our hope is to point people back to the person of Christ, the cross of Christ. And we're going to get into this today a little bit, but your covering is not a man. Okay. It's not a woman. It's not an apostle, a prophet, evangelist. That's not your covering. Okay. Yeah, we all have authority in different areas of our life that we honor and we respect, but your authority is Christ Jesus, and that's what we're going to find out today that really got things messy for Jonathan and Susie Lamb. So we'll just dive right in and get this going.
She's the voice of God to you. Joni Lamb, Jimmy Evans accused of bullying, spiritual abuse. Again, this is the Royce report by Julie Royce. Says, during their time at Daystar, former Vice President Jonathan Lamb and his wife, Susie Lamb, say they were repeatedly spiritually abused and bullied by Jonathan's mother, Daystar President Joni Lamb, and her allies. Most blatantly, they say Joni ambushed the couple by bringing in Christian heavy hitter Jimmy Evans, founder of XO Marriage, for a meeting on July 11th, 2023. Not only did Joni shame her son by telling him his wife had him, quote, by the balls. Are we allowed to say that?
Explicit.
Unquote. But Evans pressured Jonathan to submit to his mother. Imagine telling somebody your wife has you by the balls, but you need to submit. You need your mom to have you by the balls. You know what?
It sounds like this guy's a really good marriage director or counselor or whatever.
Don't listen to your wife. Listen to your mom.
Your wife got you by the things, and you need to submit to your mom. Awesome advice.
This is very interesting. Claiming she had godlike authority. Submission means she is the voice of God to you. Evan told Jonathan and Susie on a recording the couple gave to the Royce report. I'm sorry, can you clarify? Jonathan asked. She's the voice of God to me.
I like Jonathan.
I know, yeah. She's the voice of God to you, Evan said. So I can't hear from God. I have to hear from her? Jonathan asked. Good question. Outside of Daystar, Evans replied. What she says is God in Daystar. She's the voice of God. This is the voice of God in Daystar. Do you want to listen to this recording of it? It's just a little clip, but it's interesting. Oh, no.
Sign in to confirm I'm not a bot. Are you kidding me? I promise I'm not a bot.
How will we ever know the password?
All right, let's see.
While at Daystar TV, Jonathan and Susie Lamb claimed that they were spiritually abused by Jonathan's mother, Daystar President Joni Lamb, and her close allies. This included Jimmy Evans, founder of XO Marriage. In July 2023, Jonathan and Susie refused to read a listener comment praising Joni's recent marriage to sex therapist Doug Weiss. The couple objected to the marriage, believing that Weiss lacked biblical grounds for divorcing his wife. But in audio obtained by the Roy's report, Evans pressures the couple to submit to Joni, claiming she has godlike authority.
And submission means she's the voice of God to you. And I
She,
said,
I'm sorry, can you clarify? She said she's the voice of God?
I'm sorry. This is not funny at all, but the reason we're laughing is because it's kind of funny.
Well, because it's an absurd thing to say,
Yeah.
but doesn't usually get called out.
Yeah,
People
no.
don't usually like stand up to that. But whenever he does, you realize how ridiculous it is. But also, people say that all the time.
All
people
the
say
time.
this is the voice of God to you all the time. And it's so weird.
What is this, like Moses and Aaron or something? Like, did you know that we live in a new covenant? We are the priesthood of believers now. Like, that's the whole scripture from 2 Peter or 1 Peter. He's like, you're a holy nation, a priesthood, a royal priesthood. So he's saying that to Jewish believers, like, hey, you don't have to be a Levite, because the Levites were the people that became the priests and then represented the people before God and got to hear from God, do all the stuff, or the prophets. But like, we are a royal priesthood. So he's like, hey, all of you, that's what Acts 2 was all about. Like, the Spirit was poured out. The Holy Spirit was put in every single person, and Jesus died for every single person, and his Spirit is in us, and we have the mind of Christ. He's not like, oh, FYI, when you get in a ministry, then your spiritual leader at that ministry is God's voice to you. No, he says, you have the mind of Christ. Like, you can hear from God. Anyway, I just think it's really cool that Jonathan it's very normal. He's just like, wait, hold on.
Yeah, like that doesn't make
Can
sense.
you clarify?
she's the voice of God.
So God's voice is
So I can't hear from God, I have to hear from her?
Outside of Daystar. What she says is God in Daystar. This is the voice of God in Daystar.
So what accountability does she have if she's off?
Well, she has a husband. She has a board.
I'm on the board.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you're not, individually, you're not her accountability. Individually, you're her employee.
For more
Yeah.
So
Aw,
literally,
come on.
who's her accountability? And he says, the board. He
Let's
says,
go back.
I'm on the board. He says, well,
the
you're
board.
not her accountability individually.
You're her son, and
employee.
you need to go back to
This
work,
is
you little
called
employee.
making up the rules as you go. So ridiculous.
He forgot that he was on the board.
He's like, it's the board,
He's
of
like,
course.
her husband and the board. He's like, I'm on the board. Well, you're an employee. Go sit down. Get back to work. You're not doing your 15-month review well. You're fired, actually. Did we just fire your wife? Now you're fired.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Wake Up and Win Insurance. We help clients all over the nation with their term life, whole life, or universal life insurance, and we're definitely happy to help you with a consultation.
Check the description below for more info.
Great question. What accountability does she have?
Which
What-
is the questions we have for all of these other like actual pastors too.
And not to change the subject at all, because we're right on the subject here, but if you are, for some of you that are new to this channel, as soon as some people hear the word spiritual abuse, like, oh, those kind of people, oh, they're just church hurt people, or they'll say, oh, those people are just butt hurt or whatever. What's up with that?
I'm just saying, do you want to change the
No.
view?
Sure.
Do what you want.
Yeah, I feel you.
It's up
I
to
feel you. So like people just be like, yeah, they're just church hurt or whatever. But there really is studies done on spiritual abuse, and it's psychological. It has a psychological effect on people, and it can really shut people down, especially when you start using prophetic manipulation and spiritual manipulation, like, hey, the voice of God, she's the voice of God to you. So then everything you do, like, where does that line get drawn? Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that is dangerous. And I get that Jimmy Evans is from the generation of, the umbrellas of covering each level of umbrella. And what was his name?
Was it Bob Gothard? Was
Goddard?
it Bob or
Bill Gothard.
Bill Gothard.
Bill Gothard, who also was a PEDO, actually, and did SA. So all this crew that does this stuff and uses this type of theology to push their agenda, which of course they would say it's the kingdom, it's our big ministries, we're impacting so many. Okay, great. What's happening behind the scenes with this stuff? Well, we're shutting people down when they're raising concerns of accountability. And then you get guys that bring in board members that are just yes men or elders groups. So everybody should go watch the Armando and Shayla podcast that we did. I don't remember what it was called, but it's like a 3-hour podcast on spiritual abuse and just having that conversation about the dynamics and how it works. It was really, really enlightening. But we'll get back to this. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, just like on a just normal person level, it's just so weird because she is the boss. She's the boss. So just say that. Just be like, I'm the boss. I'm the CEO. This is a business. You're going to do what I say. You're going to do what I want. You're going to do what your job is, or you're fired. Like, that would be normal. If there was a recording of her saying that, I would be like, kind of harsh for a mom, but that makes sense. Like, she's the boss. But instead, it's like, has all this spiritual language and all this stuff about it. It makes it so much more intense. It's like, she is the voice of God. It's like, what?
You wonder why people deconstruct their faith coming out of stuff like this. They're like, I mean, literally, there's so much fear of missing God. And I think Jonathan and Susie are handling it well. And I mean, it seems like they are, but it messes with you. No matter what, it messes with you because you're like, even when you stand up to this kind of stuff, it still messes with you because people will say, well, actually, we'll get into it. But I mean, people say you're going to be cursed or you're coming out from under covering. So therefore that demons can get you because you're not protected by the prophet or the apostle. It's like, well, what about those people? Where was the protection for Daystar? Oh, are they under a covering? I mean, I hate to say it, but the 7-year infidelity of Marcus Lamb. And I mean, where was that covering? There was like, so are you saying that in that situation, he's the voice of God to them? He was the voice of God while he was doing that stuff? I don't think that's true. And you, if you've heard our podcast for the last year, we never sit here around and say, oh, we expect perfection forever. It's like, give me a break. Nobody's perfect. Not even spiritual leaders. Nobody's going to be perfect. But fidelity to marriage is very important. Fidelity to marriage is like number one on the chopping block for these top ministers for some reason. It's very strange. And then they're like, well, it's like David, you know, dance like David dance with someone that ain't your wife. Let's keep going. All right, where were we? Okay, here we go. The contentious.
All right. The contentious meeting came about 2 years after Jonathan caught a family member in a compromising situation with his daughter and accused him of molesting the girl. As reported previously by TRR, Jonathan and Susie claimed that Joni and her late husband, Daystar co-founder Marcus Lamb, immediately defended the family member and declared him innocent. So, I mean, we have like an entire video about this. You can read Julie's article about this, but real quick, their daughter told them that somebody had touched her. And then they didn't know who it was at first. Then they suspected. Then Jonathan found his daughter, walked in on his daughter and a family member, and his daughter was not clothed at all.
She went up to the room to change, and then this family member followed her up to the room, and then Susie and Jonathan noticed it. So Jonathan went up. By the time he got there, she was not wearing anything, and that family member was staring at her in the room with her and began to apologize profusely. Now, what was he apologizing for? Like, what was he apologizing for? So anyway, he then goes to Marcus and Joni defend the family member and declared that family member innocent. Now, in the previous article, Joni said she was praying and said, God told me that he's innocent. And then Marcus clapped his hands and said, well, there you have it. So this is the background of this conversation.
Something else. Okay, it says, this caused a major rift in the family, but a few weeks later, in late August 2021, Marcus told Jonathan and his brother-in-law, Jonathan J.W. Weiss, I think is how you say it, which is very interesting that he has the same last name as the Doug
They're
guy.
not related, but
they have the same last name.
His
It's Weiss,
brother-in-law,
not Weiss, I think.
Meaning Marcus's brother-in-law? Or
Marcus told Jonathan and his brother-in-law, J.W.
Okay. Which I think is one of the brother-in-laws, right? Okay.
I think he's one of the ones that
Rebecca's
warned.
brother. Rebecca's brother, or Rebecca's husband. Rebecca's brother in Christ and husband in the natural.
That an internal investigation had cleared the family member. Okay, real quick. This is what I was going to say. We don't have this pulled up, but you should pull up that other video that Julie made. It's on X because it shows. So this is a big part of the story that people who are like, well, why didn't they do anything? Well, why are they just now doing this? Why are they just now coming out? They were told there was an internal investigation and that this family member was cleared. Now, of course, they still thought he was sketchy, didn't let their kids around him, didn't want to be near him, and thought he did it. But they were told he was innocent.
Because they said there was an internal investigation that proved it.
And as a parent, I understand why you want to believe that. Mm-hmm. And so you will hold on to that and, and believe that. But here, Julie Royce posted a video of the person that Joni and Marcus said cleared him, and it is audio or maybe just a statement, but she said that's not true.
Okay, where's the video? I'm looking in here. Let's see. Let's see.
It's a lot going on.
A lot going on on Julie's page.
Days. It is wild. Okay, it's this one.
Okay. All right. So, I gotta at least share the page. Yeah, and I think one reason why it's good to talk about this is because there's going to be people, and there already are people that are very much like, why didn't you guys? Number one, why didn't you guys come out 5 years ago about this? Meaning, Jonathan and Susie. Mm-hmm. They're very. And that's a good question. It's a good question that anybody would ask. Why didn't you go to the police 5 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever it was that your daughter first came to you about this? Well, first and foremost, from what it looks like in the reporting, and we're going to talk, it looks like we're going to get an interview with Susie and Jonathan. Yeah. They tagged us in something and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you, which is awesome. We're totally looking forward to that. And we'll ask them these questions, and they can speak for themselves. But what it looked like was that the daughter said these things, but didn't have a person to point to.
But they did go to the police. They said
time.
that in the first article. They did go to the police. They did file a police report.
As soon as it happened? First time? Okay.
I'm like 99% sure that's what it said in that first
article.
Yeah.
Okay. Because people are asking, like, why didn't they deal with it then? Why didn't they go to the police then? Well, they didn't have anybody to point to at that time. There was nobody that they could point to. Then, oh, you're right. Because then Joni said, well, I'll talk to her. Mm-hmm. Joni talked to her, and then she came out of that meeting along with Joni, the little girl did, and never talked about it again. Mm-hmm. Basically, that means she got shut down. So people say, why didn't you deal with it then? Well, they did. They brought it out then, and then Joni shut the girl down, and the girl could never talk about it again. She never opened up about it again. And so the police shut the reporting down. They just shut the case down. So then they catch this man in the room, and so they're like, it's you. Like, it's you. I mean, what else would you think?
Of course.
It's you. You're the dude.
Which they already suspected that anyway. So imagine the person you suspect, the person you're all sketched out about, is in the room with your daughter. Like,
yes.
You're like, yes, okay, confirmation.
Confirmation. So then they're like pointing at him, and then all of a sudden the family comes to the defense of this one person that was in the room with the 5-year-old. Mind-boggling. And so they come to the defense of that person, and then they do a internal investigation, and it says that they got him and his wife to go speak to this internal investigator, and the wife answered every question for the guy.
Yeah, that's what it says on the video.
All right, so here's where we're at then. We'll watch the video. Do I have... all right, cool. Christina's like, dude, don't steal the thunder of the video. Come on.
Well, no, it's just...
No, I hear you. All right, let's go.
Daystar TV has denied allegations that co-founders Marcus and Joni Lamb covered up the alleged of their granddaughter by a family member. In a statement, Daystar said, over 3 years ago, in a thoroughly investigated and since resolved matter, it was confirmed that any allegations referencing sexual misconduct involving any Lamb family members were not credible and unfounded. However, the Royce report talked to the investigator, forensic counselor Debbie Leonard, who said that's not true. She said she wasn't able to offer any assessment.
Okay. So they took the accused and his wife to this counselor. Mm-hmm. And the Rose Report talked to the counselor, and she said, no, we didn't clear him.
Because the alleged abuser wouldn't answer any questions. And on a recording released to the Roy's Report, here's what Denise Boggs, who oversaw the investigation.
All right. So she said, he wouldn't answer any of my questions, so I wasn't able to offer an assessment. So that's, okay, like that is literally your proof that they cleared this guy?
Well, this is the first time.
Listen, this is not going away.
Yeah. Listen to the recording.
So Denise Boggs.
Told the alleged victim's parents, Jonathan and Susie Lamb.
I remember when Marcus and Joni said, we want to drop everything, just drop everything. Yeah. Just drop everything. I said, okay. And so I had told Debbie, okay, so I just want to drop everything. I don't want any more to be written and documented on this.
For more information,
don't want
see the
any
article.
more to be written and documented on this. So that's what they said to her, but then they told Susie and Jonathan that he's innocent, he's cleared, we're good, let's move on with life. But really, they just shut it down. He wouldn't talk to the investigator, and then they shut it down and lied to their family about their daughter. It's so messed up.
This is really bad. The truth will find you out.
So that's the thing too about people who are like, oh, they're just now like mad because he lost his job and now they're exposing all this. It's like, no, they literally just found out that investigation never happened.
Here, say that again, because I'm gonna be the devil's advocate. I don't like the devil. I don't want to be his advocate, but I'm gonna be everything. Like, there's comments or there's Twitter ats that are like, hey, so why didn't they deal with this 4 years ago? Why didn't they come out with this? Because Christina, Jonathan was going to get the throne. Jonathan was promised to get if Marcus were to pass away, he was going to get Daystar. So now that he's fired and he can't get it, that's why he's coming out. He's jealous. That's what people are saying. But because if it wasn't that, then he would have come out years ago if it was just about his daughter.
Well, he did come out years ago to Daystar, to his family, thought that they were like handling it with care. And he's obviously, him and Susie were obviously
They
under
thought Marcus and
major
Joni were
covering.
God.
That was the voice of God. So if they told him they handled it, they believed them. If they told him he was innocent, they believed him as much as a parent could. I don't know. We'll have to ask them when we talk to them if they ever really truly believed that. Because I think in the back of your head, you got to always know.
Something deep down
but
in
still,
Susie was
as soon
like,
as
no.
as soon as they heard that investigation never took place, that they just, and that not only that, but that Joni and Marcus told her to drop it, just drop it. I don't want any more about this documented. Then
Yeah.
How are you going to be the grandma and grandpa and call the investigator and say, shut it down?
No more documentation. Don't talk about
And
this
then tell
anymore.
everybody else, oh, he's been cleared. Great news, everyone. It's like, are you kidding me? So yeah, of course they're mad now. Of course they're bringing it up now. They literally just found this out.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does? Good. Let's move on.
It's like watching the kids shows that we watch with our kids. Hey, kids. Hi. They're like, hi. Good to hear from you. No, but really, does that make sense? It's like, it should be clear as day that as a parent, you're like, okay, you bring things immediately to the police. You bring it to your spiritual leaders because it's in that community. So you're like dealing with it. And then it's like, then the little girl gets shut down because she's met with privately. And of course, I'm sure Susie and Jonathan regret that, but they were supposed to trust their grandma, like their mom. They weren't thinking, oh, she's going to shut her down, but she did. And then they bring it to the police, and she won't talk about it anymore because the grandma shut her down. Then they do an investigation, and the forensic counselor looks at it and says, anyway, I'm just recapping this all in my mind now as I'm hearing it. It's pretty crazy.
All right. But anyway, there's an entire podcast on that. There's
going.
articles on that. So let's talk about this one though. Okay.
All right. So Marcus told Jonathan and his brother-in-law J.W. Weis that internal investigation had cleared the family member. The couple found out much later about critical deficiencies in that investigation, which we just heard about. Then in November 2021, Marcus died unexpectedly from complications related to COVID. On June 10th, 2023, Joni married Doug Weiss, a sex therapist and repeat guest on Daystar TV, who's no relation to J.W. Weiss.
Okay.
That's odd. Doug Weiss had filed for JW's like, please keep me out of this. We're like, you're in this, bro.
I'm not related to them.
Doug Weiss, you are now, had filed for divorce from his wife of 30 years on January 27th, 2022, just 2 months after Marcus died. Now, I'm going to be like, let's talk about this because it's a sensitive subject. The death of a spouse, sensitive subject already, but there's scandal all over this thing for a while. We all know that I watched the video. Marcus got blackmailed to come out and tell the story on Daystar that he had been in infidelity for like 7 years. They did not want to make it public. But see, that's a problem. I think that's a problem in the ministry world is when there's infidelity and especially these long affairs of just cheating. It's like, stop ministering and go take care of your family and your marriage. I really think that needs to happen. There needs to be like a pattern of that, not just I'm going to take a year and get restored or 6 months and get restored. It's like something needs to halt the brakes and like figure this thing out. Turn the thing over to somebody that's got a good marriage and some spiritual authority and like, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like this saying, like never trust a skinny cook or never trust a skinny chef. It's like, do not trust a marriage counselor who drops his wife of 30 years with no signs of infidelity. Don't trust him to be a marriage counselor. How you can have him on your show as a marriage counselor?
He's a marriage counselor. I think he's a sex therapist.
Oh, sorry. Well, I've seen both. I guess a sex therapist, but I have seen marriage counselor too. But either way, like, how you gonna?
Jimmy Evans apparently told Joni that it was justified that the divorce, but the odd part about it, Marcus dies. 2 months later, Doug files for divorce from his 30-year wife with no infidelity. So he files for divorce from her, even though he praised her in his previous books, and he had been on Marcus and Joni's show. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on there. So it's not like we're not like sitting here trying to be like, oh, we know this. It's just like you just kind of read the writing on the wall. It's not healthy. No matter which way you turn it, it's not healthy. It's just really just come with me to this place back in, early church history. Let's go like, 30 years after Christ's resurrection and ascension, like 40 years. Like you've got these apostles, you got the apostle Paul. It's like, imagine this going on. He's like, yeah, that sounds like some good leaders. Let's do that. Let's make them over all of the Church of Asia. That'd be great. I think he'd be like, bro, y'all are going to get the smackdown in the letter. I think we're not heavy-handed enough, frankly. It's not being mean, but Paul's letters to the church of Corinth and the church of Galatia, I think he would have it out in a letter. And I don't think he would write a letter. I think he would fly there and talk to you guys, or he would make a video and he would have it out and be like, what are you doing? You have turned the grace of God into licentiousness. Literally, like you have said, oh, this is okay. Like, anyway, let's keep going. I'm getting all preachy. Go ahead.
All right. And according to Jonathan and Susie, the meeting with Evans in July 2023 was an attempt to bully the couple into publicly supporting Joni's second marriage. Family divided. According to Jonathan and Susie, none of Joni's kids or their spouses agreed with Joni's marriage to Weiss. They all believed Weiss lacked biblical grounds for divorcing his wife,
So
and that
none
by
of the
marrying
kids
him,
did.
none of them did. And by marrying him, Joni was committing adultery. Just 2 months before the wedding, a longtime friend of Daystar, Denise Boggs of Living Waters Ministry, wrote an impassioned letter to Joni's family urging them to intervene. Boggs not only knew Joni well, but had also counseled Doug Weiss and Lisa Weiss just prior to their divorce.
That's kind of wild.
So she's good friends with them, which I remember her name being in the last article too. Yeah. And then she also counseled Doug and Lisa Weiss. So she knows some stuff. She knows some stuff.
Everything.
Do you want to read this impassioned letter?
Maybe, or we can attach it, but
Well,
let's just say Boggs wrote that she we can still read it, voiced concerns about Weiss to Joni, but she refused to hear me. Now Boggs said Joni was under a spirit of deception due to Weiss's
Let's read the
influence.
impassioned letter.
All right.
I feel like people would want to hear it.
You guys want? Hey, do you guys want to hear an impassioned letter?
You do?
You do? Let's
all
go.
All right. We'll read it really fast. Dear Lamb family, it is with... Oh.
That's all right.
How do you get it back to where we can see it all?
Get that little boom.
All right. Dear Lamb family, it is with a heavy heart that I write this letter. I met with Joni before the baby shower this past week. I was so alarmed as I listened to her talk. It was as if I didn't know her. It appears that she has come under a spirit of deception. She shared something Doug said to her that was so degrading for a woman of God. She laughed as she told me. She seemed flattered by it, which was not the Joni Lamb I once knew. I don't know what that means.
Probably sex therapy talk.
Yeah, I guess so.
But we'll keep going on.
If you give in to seductive flattery, you are being seduced and deceived. In spiritual warfare, you know the enemy by what the demonic spirit produces. Spirit of deception produces deception in a person who is under attack. Spirit of deception operates through flattery to first gain access. A man will use flattery to find the weak area in the soul of a woman. Once a woman is under the deception of flattery, she can be manipulated. Galatians 5:1 says, "Do not have fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." When darkness is operating, we have two options: to either laugh at it and fellowship with it or confront it. This is why flattery precedes deception. If a person gives in to flattery, they become trapped and deceived. The flattery gives the enemy full access to your weakest area. I voiced my concerns to Joni about Doug at the very beginning when they first started dating, but she refused to hear me and defended him. This was when I became alarmed and I knew she had come under a spirit of deception. The things I warned her about or things that she once voiced strong convictions about. When a person is under the spirit of deception, they begin to change right before your eyes, and it's as if you don't know them anymore. They say things they would have never said before. This is why I want to voice my concerns for Daystar. This is an attack against Daystar. Marcus and Joni set such a high standard for Daystar over the years that the viewers will not be fooled. They'll be able to see the deception. As the viewers begin to see the change in Joni, they will know there is something off and viewing will drop drastically. They have been under the anointing of Marcus Lamb for many years, so they won't be deceived. They will know something is wrong. They will discern the difference in the new leadership. The Daystar family has been under the leadership of Marcus Lamb, who stood for truth and righteousness. The Lord has shown me what the enemy is using Doug to do. If Joni falls for it and hands over leadership to Doug, the Daystar viewing audience will see clear through his deception. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is of no caliber for such a high platform. He is being used by the enemy to take Daystar down. Joni didn't endorse divorce until she came under his deception. Using the Daystar platform, the enemy has successfully mocked the marriage covenant using one of the strongest Christian TV networks in the nation.
This lady needs to preach.
My perspective of Doug came after spending several days with him. I voiced to her that the issues in the first marriage needed to be confronted before going into this marriage. Your mom agreed that they would hear me out at first, but once Jimmy Evans fully approved of Doug, she told me that they would not be interested in talking with me. Jimmy Evans! After spending 3 days with Doug, I am fully aware of the deep-rooted issues that caused Doug's first marriage to fail. The alarming thing is, what took the first marriage down is casually being embraced. When I met with your mom on Friday before the shower, she rehearsed all the people's names again that were endorsing the marriage to Doug. Since I know the root issues, I see warning signs others don't see. Jimmy Evans knows Doug according to what Doug wants him to know. So therefore, Jimmy Evans is endorsing this marriage without having full knowledge of what really happened to the first marriage. How can you know he is safe for Joni if you don't know the root issues behind what really happened? Joni's well-being, her health, her integrity, the family legacy, and the millions of people who trust Daystar are all at risk. We need to pray for Jimmy Evans that he will realize that the stakes are so high for the kingdom of God. I'll be praying for each of you to have discernment and not push the minimize button when you get a check. You have been disciplined for years by Marcus. I'm praying for the sake of Daystar, you will put all past hurts aside and come together as one. That's the only way you'll be able to get your mom to see the truth. I'm willing to meet with all of you and speak on your behalf with your mom. I love you all. Denise.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It makes me want to cry a little bit.
She knew.
Yeah, you know, family is just such an awesome thing, and it's such a powerful thing, and it's important and it's precious to God. And when the enemy comes in and strikes it, you know, starting with the marriage, it rips everything apart. You know, it rips siblings apart, it rips friendships apart, it rips like decade-long friendships. You know, that you see here. She's like, I talked to Joni, my friend, and she wasn't there. totally, yeah, it's just heartbreaking. And so I hope people can feel that letter when you read it. Like that's kind of, it's interesting what I was saying about the Apostle Paul. I'm not saying she's apostle or that's but it's very going nar. You getting into the nar? Oh my gosh. So but really, in some senses, it was like an epistle. It was a letter written from a person who cares about the kingdom, cares about the church, and cares about those people, that family, cares about those kids. I wonder what Rebecca and Rachel's response was to that letter.
Well, I think
Initially,
that we're going to read about it, or maybe we just heard about it. But basically, it said all of the kids were against it. So,
initially, yeah.
So let's keep reading because they do confront her about it.
Okay. Jonathan told TRR that he gathered his family to confront Joni 2 days after receiving the letter. So good man there. But Joni allowed each person no more than 1 minute to share their heart. It says, all she sees from us is fear and rushes out the door to go fly to New York with Doug.
That's so odd to me. It gives you like kind of an idea of like the family dynamics. It's like if you get a letter like that, I'd be like, okay, Mom, we have to talk. This is an emergency. Or like, let's get coffee. None of us or come over. We're coming over. But instead, Joni's like, you each have 60 seconds. Go.
Thus says God of Daystar.
Yeah.
You
and
each
then
have
she
60
pieces
seconds.
out.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that a family convo? How is that a family meeting?
Yeah. After Joni and Doug Weiss were married, Jonathan and Susie remained uneasy about the marriage. But on July 5th, July 5th, 2023, they were asked to read a viewer comment on air praising Joni's recent marriage to Weiss. The couple refused to do so when they felt it would give tacit approval to the marriage. Their refusal apparently deeply offended Joni. So Rachel shared all those screenshots.
I was going to say this answers the questions that people had from the previous episode where we shared Rachel's.
If you guys want to go back to the last episode, in the last 20 minutes, we
it.
share all of Rachel, one of the sisters' posts trying to out Susie for
liking Doug.
Saying she really liked Doug. She was the biggest supporter of Doug.
But now we see the dates of that too. We're at the beginning and before Susie got this letter, before Susie and Jonathan read this letter. Yeah. So that's very interesting.
And those type of things manifest over time, meaning like you could be against it, but then you're like, literally it's your mother-in-law and you're like trying to be like, okay, well, I guess they're going to get married. Like, what do I do? You know?
Well, I think they didn't know that he was divorced for unbiblical reasons. I don't know the reason he was divorced.
Sure.
Maybe Julie will cover that in the next one. So. I don't know. We'll see.
The couple refused to read the comment that supported Joni's recent marriage to Weiss because they felt it would give tacit approval. Their refusal offended Joni. This prompted a meeting with Jimmy Evans, in which Evans and Joni equated Joni's wishes with God's and Jonathan and Susie's opposition with Satan. In his
Okay, read that again.
Well, we'll hear it in a second because there's actually like there's an audio
of that too?
Yeah,
I
there's
must
audio.
have missed that. I didn't hear that one.
In his 2017 book, Broken Trust, the consultant and pastoral coach F. Remy Dietrich writes, spiritual abuse happens when people use God or their supposed relationship with God to control behavior for their benefit. Yeah, it is so spiritually manipulative when you say things like, hey, you not reading this, basically, hey, there's this comment that Joni saw. Hey, read that, Susie, because it props up what she wants to believe about what she's done and what these other people are saying and whatever she wants everybody to believe. And when Susie wouldn't do it, she's like, you're stubborn and you're following Satan. And when I tell you to read this, it's God telling you to read this. It's really, really, it's very strange. It's very cult-like. If you can't see that it's cult-like, but when you've grown up in this, and you've lived in this for a very long time, then it's hard to unwind from it. And then you become the leader when you've been raised in this. It's a dangerous web. On the recording of the meeting, Evans asked Jonathan, if God came to you right now and he is saying you made a mistake, would you correct it? And that's exactly what's happening. Of course, without question, Jonathan replies. But you're not, Evans says. No, but God didn't appear. He didn't speak. Jonathan says, God has spoken to you, Joni interrupts. He spoke to you through me. He spoke to you through Jimmy. You're not God, Mom. I got to add that. Jonathan says, but we're God's representatives, Evans says. We're God's representatives, Joni repeats. Joni and Evans also, look, I know we're laughing at this, but like, I want to point out the absurdity of this thinking. Joni and Evans also appeal to their ministry experience. Oh, okay, because you've been in ministry for a long time, you know, just because you've done some things. You've got 80 years of experience. That's like Eli saying to Samuel, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. You've got 80 years of experience sitting right here talking to you, Evans says. It's a spirit, Jonathan. It's a spirit that you won't listen, not just to authority, but to experience. Did you pastor for 41 years and work with marriages? This is so manipulative. Yeah. They don't realize the spirit that they're coming at him with. This is weird. This is just weird. I don't think so. You have about a thumbnail of experience compared to us. Go ahead.
Elsewhere in the meeting, Jonathan inquires who has authority over Joni. What accountability does she have if she's off, he asks. Well, she has a husband. She has a board, Evan says. I'm on the board, Jonathan replies. At the time, the only people on Daystar's board were Jonathan, Joni, and Tom Callender, a lawyer, and Joni's longtime friend, Jonathan told TRR. Yeah, but individually, you're not, we heard this recording, but you're not her accountability. Individually, you're her employee. She's the voice of God in Daystar. There's no other accountability at Daystar, Jonathan complains. Then Evans appeals to scripture, saying Romans 13 tells us to submit to authority, all authority, because it's established by God. Jonathan again objects. No, but I'm saying who is her accountability at Daystar. But that's not your concern, Evans asserts. Your concern is to do what she says, and if you can't be here. Then Joni interjects. Tell him what the Lord told you about stubbornness, what it leads to. What the Bible says, this was related to Saul, that rebellion is the sin of witchcraft, Evans says, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. And so it equates stubbornness with being an idol worshiper. And the reason it does is because stubbornness is the worship of your own opinion. And that's what y'all are doing. You're being stubborn. You're making an idol out of your own opinion related to Doug. Elsewhere in the meeting, Joni similarly accuses Jonathan of making his opinion an idol and warns him of the consequences. God wouldn't be pleased with this, Joni says, and you've opened up yourself, both of you, to demonic activity in your family and with your kids by your rebellion against me.
This is called, as I've stated before, a Christian operating in witchcraft. Some sort of Christian witchcraft. I'm coining that phrase because everybody doesn't think it's a real phrase, but I'm just saying it's a Christian operating in cursing and witchcraft.
Cursing your own family.
Cursing your own
and
family.
Their kids because they don't submit to you.
Because when they look biblically at your life, they have something to confront. And when you want them to praise that thing that biblically does not sit well with them, you are angry at them for it, and you call it worshiping their own opinion. I just pray that your eyes can be opened on this thing. I pray that people's eyes would be opened. I pray that Joni would go, this all hurts. You know, Joni made a statement that Daystar's never lost a battle. Mm-hmm. This is not just going to be a legal battle. This is what's happening right now. This is just people speaking up, and it's whistleblowers. And if you can't see that God is trying to wake you up through this experience, and instead, if you're going to just, if you're just going to fight the experience, if you're going to fight against it, then I think it's going to be a really long road of really deep pain. And there's already tons of pain because you're losing your kids. I mean, you're basically losing your son, mm-hmm. your daughter-in-law, who you were mentoring, your grandchild, who you say you would stand up for, but it seems that you didn't. So I think that I just pray that like she would humble herself in this, and that I think that this guy Doug, I mean, I don't know this guy for nothing, but it just looks weird.
Yeah.
Like it looks weird. That's all I'll say. Just the facts. No assumptions. He's on the show quite a bit, off and on. No, he's around. He sees Marcus pass away. He divorces his wife of 30 years. Then starts making a move on Joni. Then no biblical reason. They're confronted about it by good people, by family members, and by longtime friends. And she brings in Jimmy Evans to shut it all down. Mm-hmm. Hey, meet Doug. Tell my kids. Tell everybody this is God. It's like, yeah, it's just, it's strange. All right, let's go back. Where are we at with everything? God wouldn't be pleased with this. Okay. Jonathan and Susie object, saying it's not rebellion. I'm going to let you keep reading here.
It is rebellion, Joni asserts. You'll bring a curse upon you and your kids. At one point in the meeting, Joni accuses Susie of being led by her feelings and points to the SA allegations from 2021 as an example of how unreliable Susie's feelings are. There was an issue with a family member, and I'm not going to tell you that because I know they wouldn't want me to share it, Joni tells Evans. So I guess this is the first time he's hearing about this. Seems like they would have told Jimmy Evans if he was their spiritual mentor or whatever he is in their family. It seems like he would have already known about this, but it sounds like she's just not telling him. But anyways, Susie was completely convinced, and Jonathan was completely convinced that this family member was doing something that he absolutely was innocent of. And it was a terrible thing to happen in our family, but she drove that thing for a lot. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same.
The conflict reaches a crescendo 15 minutes later with Joni and Susie going head-to-head about Susie refusing to read the viewer comment. If I'm not comfortable, then I have to stick with my convictions, Susie says. It's not your right to disagree with it, Joni tells Susie. If a viewer has a comment about me or you or anybody else, it's a nice comment. That's a good thing to read. It doesn't have to do with you. You're reading a viewer comment. I'm representing it. It's a lie, says Susie. You're not representing anything, Joni replies. I'm reading it, says Susie. It's not a lie. It's not a lie, Joni objects. It's a lie if I say something I don't believe, Susie replies. It has nothing to do with you. It is a viewer comment. It's not a Susie comment. It's a viewer comment, Joni says. I can't go against my convictions in that, Susie says. Don't come back then, Joni replies. You're gone. You're fired. If you can't read a nice comment about Doug, I don't want you here. You won't do, quote, the Green Room show, Jonathan and Susie's show on Daystar. You won't do anything. After Susie's fired, Jimmy and Joni turn their attention to Jonathan, asking if he'd read the comment, if asked to do so again. Repeatedly, Jonathan... I'm just wondering if Jimmy Evans listening to that, if he's like, this is getting weird.
That's the part where I'm like, okay, I get the people who believe in being under the covering and they're listening. I can get that perspective and you want to do the right thing and all these things, but I don't get the people doing it. I don't get what happens in your life. What happens to you for you to look people in the eye and tell them you are the voice of God. I am the voice of God. I could never look somebody in the face and be like, I am the voice of God.
We know people that have done that, though.
You submit to me. If you
We've
don't,
been in churches where people did that stuff.
Your kids will be cursed.
That's wild.
How do you get to that point in life, in your journey with Jesus, to where you realize you're God and that anyone who doesn't submit to you is going to be cursed, and so are their kids? How does that happen?
Does she realize that her kids currently are going through what some would point out and say, whoa, your family's cursed or something like that? You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're cursed. I'm just saying, does Joni realize that what's happening in her family, if it's all about, if you guys are stubborn, then your kids will have problems. Joni, look at what's going on right now in your family. Do you not think that comes back on you and Marcus at all, or you and Doug and what's going on in that whole ordeal? This is not just because Jonathan decided to stick with his convictions and blow the whistle. This is because there's all kinds of open doors from all kinds of stuff that's been admitted to. So, let's see.
After Susie is fired, wait, did you already read that? Okay, all I want to hear is that you'll submit to my authority, Joni says. That's all. I don't want to hear anything else. I don't want to hear about your personal convictions. That's so weird. Jonathan says he will submit to Joni. But when Evans asks if that means Jonathan would read the comment, if asked to read it today, there's a long pause. Then Evans says, see, now you're in trouble with her. Susie objects to being made some bad guy because he's saying you're in trouble with Susie.
Yeah.
If you submit to your mom, then Susie's going to be mad.
Yeah.
And then Susie's like, you're making me out to be some bad guy. Then Joni says, you are bad, Susie. You've got him by the balls and you know it. Babe, they're really scary, Susie says to Jonathan. They think horrible things. I've got you by the balls. Who talks like that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, people that
talk like that.
Yeah. And people that treat people like that, like
yeah.
It's not like overly religious, like you can't say that word, but it's just so
no,
weird.
you can say balls all you want, but what mother-in-law
Whoa.
says that to her daughter-in-law, being like, you are bad? Like, even that is worse than saying you've gone by the balls. Looking somebody in the eye that you like, it just being like, you are bad and you've got him by the balls. It's so.
And Susie's got guts, and Jonathan does too. I mean, I respect these folks. Like, and some people would be like, oh, they're not honoring their parents, or they're not. No, they're like a parent. I will never tell my kids, I don't care about your convictions. It's like, I want to be like, tell me about your convictions. Let's talk that through. Okay. I mean, when they're children, it's one thing, but like, this is a grown man on the board of your ministry. You might want to listen. He might have some discernment. He's older than you guys were when you started Daystar. He might have some insight for you. But I get that you think you've got 40 years and all this stuff and you've seen a lot, but maybe discernment grows old when it gets corrupted by power and money and control. And so maybe you need to listen to your son. It might be wise to listen to your daughter-in-law, to have a teachable spirit in this situation.
Hold on, this gets intense. Okay. You gave him so she said, who talks like that? Then Joni goes, you gave him a look. I gave him a look of pity, like you're cornering him. This is so evil, what's happening? Susie replies, no, what is evil is you. Joni says, what's evil is you and the spirit that's driving you. I'm surprised she didn't call her Jezebel right there.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's been called that before. At the end of the meeting, Susie appears to leave the room, leaving Jonathan alone with his mom and Evans. Joni encourages Jonathan to draw the line in the sand with Susie. You're going to pay hell for it, but stand your ground. Jonathan tells his mother that he and Susie are on the same page, but she appears to not hear what he said. You're about to catch hell, so you can handle her, Joni says. You're her covering. Handle her. Then speaking to Evans, Joni says this is going to be his Alamo, so he's going to handle it and handle her, or not. But I can tell him this will probably decide your leadership role here at Daystar, how you handle that. So this is really what decided his leadership role at Daystar, not the 15-month probation or whatever they say. It's this and not signing an NDA. That is what,
Hold on. Say that again. So Joni's statement, hold on, babe.
Well, it's later in the article. We're going to get to it.
Joni's statement is that his 15-month
he was like a probation
progress
period, whatever
report.
It's called. Yeah.
Your progress report. You weren't a good worker, B.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually.
It's like you wouldn't read the card praising me and my husband, and you
wouldn't handle your wife.
You wouldn't handle your wife, and you also wouldn't sign an NDA that I asked you to sign after your daughter was essayed. Oh.
There's Judah. He's waking up.
Okay. I'm going to get to him.
All right. Okay. We're back. Just for all of you that don't know, we have 3 little kids that are 7, 4, and 2. And our 2-year-old still likes to wake up in the middle of the night and beg his mommy for all kinds of milk and fun stuff. So anyway, we're back and let's roll. So what were we saying? Okay, after the meeting, Jonathan wrote in an email to Joni that he felt trapped in an impossible position. Things are completely out of hand. I never thought in my life I would be put in this position. We urgently need to meet about this matter.
I think we should read the email.
Okay.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Wake Up and Win Insurance. We help clients all over the nation with their term life, whole life, or universal life insurance, and we're definitely happy to help you with a consultation.
Check the description below for more info.
Dear Mom, you said my email was mischaracterization of what happened in the meeting, but the truth is black or white. Are you denying that you both said these things? When the 6 of us siblings were all in unity that we did not have peace about this marriage, we did what was right and in full submission to the man you chose to oversee your relationship, which is the only reason we went to Jimmy Evans. In that meeting, Jimmy was very clear that Susie and I were the only ones who were respectful to him, but did a 180. Hold up. So in the early meeting with everybody, all the siblings,
The siblings went to Jimmy Evans to tell them.
and Jimmy said that they were the only ones that were respectful. Now they're the rebellious ones. He did a 180 in this meeting by calling us disrespectful when we didn't say much. Then you said that if I wasn't going to read the viewer feedback the next day, that I was not submitting and that I would be fired that very moment. I'm not choosing to be removed from ministry now, nor did Susie. Susie clearly stated that she has been and always will be fully submitted to you, just that we would not be forced to read viewer feedback about Doug. Even though we weren't in favor of you marrying Doug, you have free will and can make your choice before God. We even came to your wedding to show you love and support. All we asked is that you don't let your marriage interfere with our jobs. Susie said she would never quit because she did not have permission from God to do so. Jimmy and you said, since you are the voice of God at Daystar, we have no personal convictions in the building. And we must, that is so insane.
Yeah. You have no personal convictions.
In this building, in Daystar, her voice is the voice of God. I don't care what your convictions are, Jonathan. Are you going to submit to me or not? And we must do or read anything you say. Susie simply said she stood by her conviction, and you told her she was fired and to take her stuff and leave. I was trapped in an impossible position, threatened to be thrown out of Daystar at that very moment. Like I explained before, with my birthright in question, I said I submit because I always have, but I also needed time to go pray and figure out what to do next. The next morning, I walked out my decision by not reading the viewer feedback on Ministry Now, for which you and Jimmy said I would be fired if I did not, hence my confusion and wanting more clarity. Things are completely out of hand. I never thought in my life I'd be put in this position. We urgently need to meet about this matter. I'll be waiting to hear from you next. Comments?
Nope.
Wow.
It's crazy.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Joni replied that for now, payroll isn't being affected, and she said she would let Jonathan know when she's ready to meet on this issue. Let's read that one really quick, too. This is a much shorter email. She said, Jonathan, yes, your email completely mischaracterized the meeting. There was no mocking or laughing at either of you. For now, payroll isn't being affected, but I'm giving prayer and counsel to decide roles on Ministry Now, etc. As you stated, you and Susie will not be returning for Ministry Now. I will decide when it's appropriate to rejoin based upon your ability to follow protocol as directed by me as executive producer and the producer in charge. I'll let you know when I'm ready to meet on this issue.
This right here, July 14th, is the start of this probationary period. You remember how we said we would and he is not. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you know when I decide when it's appropriate to rejoin based upon your ability to follow protocol. What is protocol? It's say
Whatever
good things
she says.
about me and Doug and the fact that we got married. Say good things. That is weird.
Yeah.
Have somebody else say it. Why are you trying to force the person that doesn't think it's a good
It's
idea?
for making them read a card. It's kind of like making this a huge thing, but I think that's what happens with narcissists.
You just came out and done said it.
Well, I'm just saying,
That's what I said you said.
I'm just saying, I said it.
I said what I said. Have a good night.
But I mean, you can't let somebody else have another opinion or another. Talk about her accusing them of making their opinion an idol. You're trying to blow up the whole thing because they don't want to read a card saying that Doug is the best in the world and they're glad y'all are married. It's kind of nuts. Okay. Over the next 18 months, Jonathan and Susie say the intimidation and threats from Daystar intensified, culminating in Jonathan's termination from Daystar on November 16th, 2024. We will cover the details of what happened during those 18 months in our next story.
Dun, dun, dun.
Tiara reached out to Daystar with specific questions regarding the story. Daystar replied that Joni would be releasing an official statement. In the statement this afternoon, Joni accuses Jonathan of fabricating a smear campaign because he was not named future president of Daystar following the death of his father. You want to watch this statement? So there's a video and it's also written, so however you want to do it.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. Here we go. Oh, so the official statement is also just sitting here like this.
Yeah,
right?
let's...
But
actually, there is more now that I say it, but I do want to hear her doing it. But she includes a little clip from an email. little piece of an email that he wrote without including the whole thing.
Okay. Let's
And
listen.
then Julia includes the whole thing, which makes
Hello,
it make way more
everyone.
sense.
I wanted to take a few minutes today to speak from my heart to the Daystar family and friends. Recently, Daystar made the decision to terminate my son, Jonathan Lamb's employment. That decision was not taken lightly. It followed a 15-month review of Jonathan's performance and his refusal to take any steps to satisfy a detailed performance improvement plan put in place. He also refused my offer to participate in a formal mediation to resolve grievances in a biblical and professional manner. Rather than take any steps to improve his performance at Daystar, it seems clear now that Jonathan was focused on fabricating a smear campaign. You see, Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of Daystar following the death of his father and my husband, Marcus Lamb, despite the fact that Marcus had given a clear directive to the family and to the board that I would succeed him as president. Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way only deepened when I married Dr. Doug Weiss, who has been such a blessing to me, the rest of my family, and Daystar. I can tell you that as a mother, as a grandmother, this situation saddens me deeply, and it grieves my heart because I love my family. I love all my children. I love my grandchildren. I love the work we've done together for so many years. And I had hoped that we could have resolved the situation in private. But now, Jonathan has given me no choice except to speak out. Everyone knows that we have...
Jonathan and Susie, in their opening video, said, we have tried to resolve this in private for years to no avail, to no repentance, and they've given us no choice but to speak out.
Mm-hmm. Also, Joni says, I would like to resolve this in private. Also, I sent all my private text messages between me and Susie to my daughter to post on her Instagram stories. You know?
You caught it. That's it.
Dedicated our lives to spreading the love of Jesus. And to see it attacked by my son, Jonathan, and his wife is truly heartbreaking. I want to assure you that all the allegations that are circulating against myself and my late husband are completely false.
All of the allegations that are surfacing about me and my husband are completely false. All. Okay.
We have already begun to take legal steps to defend ourselves, and we will address the accusations in a God-honoring way. We stand firm in our faith, knowing that God is with us, and his purpose for Daystar is far greater than any present challenge we may be facing. While this attack is very painful and wrong, I know that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against a spiritual enemy who seeks to destroy and divide no matter what the cost. I want to ask you for your prayers. Thank you for your continued love and support. Our team here at Daystar will keep you updated. Again, thank you for your prayers.
I wonder, I'm thinking of what she's saying, and then I'm thinking about the Denise letter. Like, Joni's well-being, her health, her integrity, the family legacy, and the millions of people who trust Daystar are all at risk. We need to pray for Jimmy Evans that he will realize that the stakes are so high. I will be praying for each of you to have discernment, the kids, to not push the minimize button when you get a check that's called your personal conviction. So your friend Denise, Joni, this is her response to you, but she said it first. And she's been praying that your kids would have discernment and conviction and not to minimize it and shut up. So what you're saying is that Jonathan's attacking the ministry and Susie's attacking the ministry, but really they're standing on convictions, private convictions. And your friend called it out. Anyway. Okay, where was that other... You said there was another statement. Okay, so...
So this is what she just read was pretty much this, I think. But then she said, she clipped part of an email. She said, Jonathan's disappointment escalated to the point where he attempted to blackmail his way into becoming the future president of Daystar. It says, we remain willing to put this episode behind us, which this is an email from Jonathan, and they're making it sound like, if you haven't been following, we remain willing to put this episode behind us. To me, she's posting that to make it sound like the episode of SA of the 5-year-old, which sounds terrible for a parent to be like, I'll put this behind us if you make me president. But he's not talking about that. He's talking about the Doug episode reading the cards thing. And you'll see that as we continue reading on. But she just put that part in it, which I think is so deceitful.
Good point. Good point. So basically, she puts this in, so everybody thinks it's about the essay of the child, but really this is about what we just read about.
Right.
Okay.
So we remain willing to put this episode behind us. However, we also require security, transparency, and certainty about our futures at Daystar. To achieve this goal, we would suggest that Joni, Daystar, and ourselves enter into a new contract that clearly spells out my future role as president at Daystar, restricts the ability of Joni or any other officer or director from taking actions adverse to our employment without good cause to be clearly defined and without prior approval of majority of the board of directors. In exchange for the agreed contemplated above, we will agree not to use, disseminate, or otherwise publish any and all audio recordings that could be harmful or embarrassing to Daystar, Joni, or our family.
Yeah. Okay. So I just have to say there, that right there, it makes sense that he would say, restricts the ability of Joni or any other officer or director from taking actions that adverse to our employment without good cause to be clearly defined. Not, hey, you won't read the card that says this marriage to a man that just divorced his wife right after my husband died was a good thing. Like, that is a wild reason to kick that girl out, to fire Susie. It is completely absurd. So this makes total sense. And I don't think I'm being unbiased in that. It's just like, clearly it was such an odd reason to fire her.
And it says, I certainly have nothing to hide, nor would I ever submit to threats of blackmail. Well, you do have something to hide, the beginning of this email. But anyways, this email from Jonathan, though, reveals what this sad episode is all about.
You mean the beginning of the email?
Of this one.
Yeah.
A failed power struggle by Jonathan. And then the rest of it is what you just saw in the video. So as we continue on in the article, it will
Joni
show
accuses of
this is a response to a different email from her.
Okay. So this is that same portion.
That's what we just read, yeah.
According to Jonathan and Susie, the commitment not to publish audio recordings was not blackmail, but a response to 13 stipulations Daystar gave the couple if they wanted to be reinstated to their previous positions at Daystar. 13 stipulations will keep requirements for Jonathan and Susie. Will keep disagreements about theological opposition to marriage to themselves privately. Will keep disagreements about Doug's divorce to themselves privately. Will accept the existence of the marriage, support her in the marriage, and accept the fact that Doug is her husband. Will keep disagreements about the marriage to themselves privately, and to keep any negative feelings or opinions they have against Jimmy Evans to themselves privately. Will accept her decisions to make Doug co-host. Will keep any objections to Doug being co-host to themselves privately. Will make no social media posts about Daystar or Joni's marriages issues or Doug divorce issues, blah, blah, blah. Delete Jonathan's sabbatical posting and all comments off the internet. Delete any other social media posts by Jonathan that allude to any items 1 through 5. Susie has posts on social media that have no names but can be interpreted as referring to the sabbatical. Joni, delete. Jonathan must make a statement that expresses support.
Approved by Joni, Mr. Calendar, and Arnold. This is important.
Okay.
She's telling him he has to put on his social media, he has to make a statement that she approves, that expresses support for Joni. The sabbatical is over. Glad to be back. Returning to ministry now.
The power and control.
So much control. It's like she has to control. It's nuts. Must agree to destroy all recordings of meetings with Jimmy Evans and Joni, and any recording of Joni talking privately with Joni and Susie over refusal to read on air. I wonder how they knew they had that recording. I wonder if they said, like, well, I've got this or something. Must agree to destroy all Susie's recordings of private comments Joni shared with Susie about sex and marriage involving Doug. There will be no discussions with any programmers, viewers, partners, or other third parties concerning the items listed above. So that's their 13 points. Here's Joni's. Here's Joni's 3. Joni agrees to allow Jonathan and Susie to return to ministry now. Jonathan and Susie will not be required to read statements about the marriage or publicly endorse the marriage. How kind. Jonathan and Susie will be given the opportunity to rebuild trust. This is on Johnny's to-do list. Jonathan and Susie will be given the opportunity to rebuild trust over time and earn back other involvement. How kind.
I know. You know what it's like, babe? It's like I can't say it all, but it's like
say it all.
Well, it's like scenarios I've been through in ministry and business and different areas where I was, I just have heard these types of language before where you're like, you know what? we're going to just control you completely. And then you're like, hey, look, just let's not do that. And they're like, well, we're going to be kind enough to not control you completely, but kind of control you. And you're like supposed to thank them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being so kind. I don't have to say that I love you guys' marriage. Wow, thanks.
Yeah.
God has finally released me from that statement. Thank you, God. It's like, it's just kind of wild. Anyway, okay. All right. One of the stipulations asked for the couple to agree to destroy all recordings of meetings with Jimmy Evans and Joni, and any recording of Joni talking privately with Joni and Susie over refusal to read on air. Jonathan added that his reference to his future role as president of Daystar was not an attempt to usurp his mother's position. Instead, he was referring to a succession plan his father had outlined, that if Joni passes or retires, then Jonathan will become president. Now, that makes sense. Only because it just makes sense because he's like, if I'm going to be here, is what Dad said still a part of the future for me? Or is that off the table because I didn't like Doug? And clearly he knows. I mean, I think, here's the deal. I think deep down, they knew it was done and done back in July. They're like, this is weird. It's kind of like, you know, when you're in a position and like suddenly the dynamics change and you just try to stay. You try to stay.
And I think they probably thought in their head, like, okay, if we stick with this, once we become, you know, the president, we'll change the culture here. We'll do things differently, you know, so kind of holding out on that moment for them to take it. And but yeah, the whole thing is he wasn't saying like, I have to be the president now. I want your position. He was just saying what he was, you know, originally promised was if something happened to his mother or if she retired, then he's the next in line. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So he's like, well, you know, I want what you guys said I would have. Yeah.
And Joni's making it out to be like, look, he just wanted the throne the whole time, and he's just mad. That's why he's putting us on blast. But here's the kicker, and I want to talk about this. However, both Jonathan and Susie noted that these negotiations happened before November 18th, 2023, when Denise Boggs revealed to them that the internal investigation had not cleared their family. The internal investigation had not cleared their family member of the SA of their daughter. At that point, the couple say they no longer cared about their jobs, but they wanted justice. That's it. There it is. So, like, what?
That makes sense to me. To be like, okay, I want, you know, my original job. I want all these things. Then as soon as you find out that you were lied to about the essay of your daughter, you're like, oh, I don't care.
I don't want to be a part of y'all.
Why would I want to be president? I don't want to work in the cafe. I don't want to do anything with you guys. And then you're out.
I want
the people who are like saying they're still doing this for like a power grab, it's like, no, there's no way at this point they're going to be the president after all of this. But not to mention, why would you want to? Do you think they want to work with all those people? You think they want to be a part? No, they just want justice for their daughter.
Yes. And this isn't an Absalom move like they would like. I'm sure they're throwing out there at Jonathan. This isn't a Jezebel move. This is a justice move. This is a truth right in the middle of your camp move. It's like, it's literally sometimes God has to raise someone up in your own household to hold you accountable to righteousness and the truth that you taught them. You spoke those words to them. You taught them those things. And now they're of age. They're at a level where you should listen to them. And it's sad when sons and daughters come to the plate with what they were taught by their parents, only to be struck down by their parents because they can't humble themselves to listen to somebody that might have wisdom. And that's what we're watching happen here. But I think that answers all of the questions and the naysayers about everything.
Why now?
Yeah, why now?
People were like, why did they still want to? If he got the job as president, he would just be okay with like pushing this under, you know, just brushing this under. What do you say? Under the rug.
brushing this under brushing your teeth.
Brushing this out of the universe. Brushing it under the rug. If they got, you know, the throne, they got the throne, they'd be fine with just like forgetting about their child's essay. No, that's not it. They didn't even know until the 18th, and that's whenever they were like, forget this.
And just a reminder, Denise Boggs' letter literally said like, hey, we looked into all this stuff, and it was never, or what was that? The forensic, the forensic evidence, like, or the forensic counselor said, no, he never answered my questions.
Yeah.
The family member that was supposedly cleared, that they told Marcus and Joni said, oh, he's cleared. We did an internal. And Jonathan and Susie were like, wow, geez, I guess they did the investigation. And then in November 18th, 2023, like, oh, no. Yeah, we did an investigation, but he wouldn't answer any of my questions, so I never could make an assessment. Jonathan and Susie, their minds had to be like blown in that moment. Be like, what?
Talk about betrayal.
Oh my gosh. I would be like, yeah, makes sense. It makes sense what they're doing. They're not after anything but the truth here. Okay, so what is full email excerpt in Joni's official statement? So what is this, Jonathan? What is this?
Okay, so we just read Joni's statement. So she just put a little bit of this email in it, but here's the whole thing.
So here's the whole email. Daystar has always been our calling. For the sake of the kingdom and Daystar, we are willing to put this unfortunate episode behind us.
Talking about the marriage card Doug Weiss
All that
situation,
stuff.
not their child.
Yeah, come on.
Because this is from October 3rd, you guys, before he knew.
The list of demands we received, however, are overreaching, of course, inaccurate and missing essential terms that we view as prerequisite to moving forward. First and foremost, we agree that trust must be rebuilt and that it must be rebuilt slowly. We are committed to walking this path. Our convictions, biblical beliefs, and moral values are not going to be dictated, controlled, and otherwise something. The episode began because of Joni's need to control our biblical convictions to suit her personal choices. Bro, you just dropped the truth. I hope everybody hears this and sees this. I mean, come on. We will not compromise on our biblical beliefs and moral convictions. We are, however, willing to keep those beliefs to ourselves, and we can agree not to share our thoughts about Joni's marriage to Doug on air, with our viewers, with staff, or on social media. To be clear, moving forward, we will only share and read statements on air that we approve, that is in line with the truth. Susie would never share and does not possess recordings of private conversations with Joni. Susie is owed a letter fully reinstating her to all her previous roles at Daystar. During the meeting with Joni and Jimmy Evans, Joni purported to fire Susie and promptly removed her from all appearances on Daystar. This was petty, harmful, and disappointing action. Repair must be... It was petty. You're not going to read this card saying you like Doug and me? You're fired. Says the Lord of Daystar. Basically. We remain willing to put this episode behind us. However, we also... So this is the only thing that Joni put out there. Anyway... Lastly, our social media accounts are personal property. They do not belong to Daystar. They will not be controlled.
Good.
There you go. All right. There's the... Okay, cool. That's it, guys. That's the deal. So let us know your thoughts on this episode below. Drop your comments. Share this one because Daystar are trying to shut these folks down.
Yeah, they really are.
I don't think it's going to work.
I don't think so either.
You can't control the internet.
Yeah.
I get, like, you can't control the truth. And why would you want to? Yeah, why would you want to? I mean, we could speculate, but we've seen all the people that did in the past.
That's true.
And we've heard all the stuff that's gone down about those people. And so what's actually in the closets, is it more than what we're seeing here? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it just is she really wanted to marry this guy, and she also really didn't want her family out with this problem within the internal situation with the child and all that. But I mean, you can't. This is an hour of massive exposure. Like, everybody's getting exposed for all the hiddenness, and so you just gotta. It's like, out with it. So anyway, any final thoughts, babe?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Love y'all. We'll be back soon. Peace.
Wake up and win. Wake up and win. Wake up.